This Tuesday morning edition, conference final preview edition of Pucks Across Borders on Sports Addict Live, brought to you by the one, the only First Round Collectibles. Right now, with our promo code Sports Addict, get 10% off every sports card in the First Round Collectibles store. They have an ongoing sale up to 50% off, tons and tons of cards. And with the promo code Sports Addict, not only do you get 10% off of regular priced items, but sales items as well. Hockey, football, basketball, baseball, wrestling, boxing, you want it, they got it. Go to firstroundcollectibles.com today. Use promo code Sports Addict for 10% off regular priced and sales priced items. That's promo code Sports Addict for 10% off every card in the First Round Collectibles store. That's the number one, STRoundcollectibles.com. First Round Collectibles, sports cards for sports fans.
Yeah. Let's go. We just gotta go hard. I go the hardest. I bring the pain. Not what you used to. It's all part of the game. Yeah, I just gotta go hard. I just gotta go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Yeah. Oh yeah, the beast back. Adrenaline pumping through my veins. Can't relax. Original. I am not the same as these cats. I sting them if they never.
And welcome to Pucks Across Borders on a Tuesday morning conference final preview edition, live on YouTube and on X, whenever you're watching. We appreciate you. All of this brought to you by First Round Collectibles. We got a game 7 to break down from last night. Underwhelming, in my personal opinion. We'll see what the guys have to say about it. And the conference finals have been set. Dallas hosting the Edmonton Oilers and the New York Rangers hosting the Florida Panthers. We're going to get into all of it. But before we do, as always, I am Mark Sauter, and at the top of your screen, right next to me, you read his gambling picks on Winners and Winers. You read his work on Give Me Sport. Andre, how you feeling on a Tuesday morning?
Feeling pretty good. I'm excited to talk about these conference finals. Last night, not the best, but what's past is past. Que sera, sera.
That's right. We press on towards the goal. John, at the bottom of your screen, you read his work about the NFL on Gridiron Heroics. John, how you feeling on a Tuesday?
Feels like we're really getting down to it now in the hockey world. Yesterday, I think we could argue was a little disappointing the way the series ended, but we'll have time to get into that.
Yeah, so let's get into it now. The Edmonton Oilers beat the Vancouver Canucks 3-2, 3-0 for the longest time, nothing for the longest time. 3 goals by the Oilers in the second period, 2 goals by the Canucks in the third period. Made it interesting, made it close. Too little, too late for the Canucks. The Edmonton Oilers win and move on. Like we said, have a date now with the Dallas Stars. John, let's start with you, man. What did you see in that game last night? Like I said, I just expected more. I think it's easy to say that we expected more from the Canucks. I didn't think the Oilers played all that tremendous either. But what did you think about that game last night?
In the third period, they certainly didn't. I mean, that period was all Canucks. Like, Vancouver really just needed one more period, like the third period. My main takeaway from last night was too little too late on Vancouver's side. I think they finally found their rhythm, but they dug themselves such a hole that they didn't have, that the clock simply ran out on them last night. I do feel like if they had one more period, they would have won the game. But I think they just adapted too late. And I'm not sure I'm with you all the way on the Edmonton side of things. I thought they played great the first 2 periods. I thought that could have easily been a 5-0 lead. Like, Edmonton was owning them. They were taking advantage of their opportunities. Vancouver, Shelov's shout out to him on the Vancouver side. I
Oh my
think
goodness. Yeah.
he's the only reason. I think we could all agree, and Mark, you've been saying this for a while, that he wasn't playing like a third string goalie, especially last night. Um, yeah, I think he's a big reason why Vancouver even had a shot to come back last night. Uh, I remember this one shot. This wasn't all him, but this one shot in particular in the second period. McDavid set up Draisaitl on a power play beautifully. Draisaitl has a wide open nets, and like I'm not sure whose stick it was for Vancouver, but they took a lot of momentum out of it for Shelots to still make a great save. So things like that, I think, kept the Canucks in it. Canucks, man, like they had 5 or 6 shots in the first 30 minutes of that game, which if you're opportunistic, that's fine, but like they weren't. That's really the problem.
Right.
I've had a night to sleep on this, and even today as we're doing the show, I'm not sure how I feel about how much of an impact the Besser injury was on the Vancouver side of things. I'm willing to lean towards a little bit, but I think saying it was the whole reason is letting the team off the hook, so I don't want to go that far. I'll just say it had a little bit of an impact, but I think Vancouver still should have and could have found a way to overcome it. They're a deep enough team where I think they could have absorbed it. But I don't want to take credit away from Edmonton. Game 6 and 7, they found a groove that I think they were missing the first 5 games of the year. They had 5 straight periods of great hockey. But I will say it was great hockey for the team they were facing. I don't think they can keep that up. I think they're gonna have to change some things against Dallas. But I want to give a shout out to Noblock too from Edmonton's side. I thought he coached a fantastic series. I think some of the moves he made was the only reason why Edmonton is moving on, because I think he did a good job keeping Vancouver on their toes and forcing them to continue to adapt. And I criticized this at first as a depth issue for Edmonton, but I do think considering they won the series, I think the coaching deserves a lot of credit. He's turned this team around all season from like an incredibly slow start to arguably the best record since he took over. And I think this series against Vancouver, some of the moves he made showed how good of a coach he is, because he was facing a team that was much deeper than his own.
Yeah, and I mean, to your point, you go from Skinner to Pickard, and that could have backfired for Knobloch in a massive way. And then you go to Skinner from Pickard, and that could have backfired in a massive way as well. So I definitely agree with you on that. Andre, what about you, man? What did you think of that game last night?
I mean, they just, looking at Vancouver, they didn't test Skinner enough.
No.
Or just at all, really, for the first 30, 35 minutes of the game. And when you're in a 3-0 hole, it's a little too late, especially when it's a 3-0 hole in the third period. It's a little too late to try to turn on the Jets. I think for me, the most telling part of the game was the end of the first period when they had that 4-minute power play and they didn't get a single shot on goal. I mean, that's a huge opportunity you let go to waste in a game 7. You could have took an early lead, could have momentum on your side. Shelovs was playing fantastic. So your goaltender's doing his thing. You think if you give him a lead, you're going to win the game. That'll give you a lot of confidence moving forward. Absolutely nothing. Edmonton scored right after it ended in the beginning of the second, because it bled over for like 10 seconds. So that right there completely flipped the game. Pretty much ended the game, honestly, because Edmonton, they weathered the storm, took over in that second period, and then all they had to do was hang on in the third, and it wasn't easy, but they held on. So if you're Vancouver, I mean, you can use the injuries as an excuse if you want, but you had the opportunities. You were right there. You just, you woke up too late. You didn't really have a good game plan going in. And you got to give Edmonton, obviously a ton of credit. They have great players over there. Zach Hyman has 11 goals in these playoffs. Draisaitl, McDavid, you don't really need to talk about them much more. Nugent Hopkins, he's from BC. He had a goal and an assist last night. He's also a great player. Like, they have a ton of talent, but it's not like they overwhelmed Vancouver. And it wasn't like they overwhelmed Vancouver or beat Vancouver because of the injuries. I feel like the Canucks really just let their opportunities slip late in the series.
Yeah, it's a struggle for me because like you guys have both said, like it's not taking anything away from the Oilers. Like, the Oilers are a good team. Somebody had to win. They won. They deserve to move on. I thought from the Oilers' perspective, specifically, their penalty kill was tremendous all series long, especially yesterday. You mentioned the 4-minute power play in the first period. That was huge. And I thought their ability to clog the neutral zone and to block shots was just tremendous. Like, towards the end of the third period, you're seeing Connor McDavid throw his body out there. You're like, everybody was buying into it. But on the same side, as much as the penalty killing was good for the Oilers, they were so aggressive. Like, you saw every time a pass was made, there was a Oiler right there. Everything that we can say, specifically last night, everything we can say that the Oilers did well, I felt like a lot of it was because the Canucks were awful. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah, the Canucks or the Oilers, very good penalty kill. That power play for the Canucks was brutal. Yeah, the Oilers clogging up the neutral zone. Those entries for the Canucks were brutal. Some of those passes were just going into no man's land. Like, it's not trying to take credit away from the Oilers. I just thought last night, like you said this pre-show, do you guys got me? Was that sound? Yeah. Was that sound made worldwide? Did you guys hear that, or was that just me?
You broke up on my end.
True. All right. Yeah, my computer's having a time. No, that was me. My computer's having a time. But I mean, you said it pre-show, John. Like, Saturday, that was Oilers just playing phenomenal hockey, and I thought last night, I just thought, yeah, the Oilers were good. They did what they had to do, but I just thought the Canucks were brutal for large stretches in the third period. And I mean, we talked about this. Skinner, you chased Skinner. Like, just throw everything on the net. And I think the Oilers knew that because they were the ones that were blocking shots and making sure that nothing even got through, because they're like, let's protect Skinner and just make sure nothing gets through. That first goal by Garland, I believe it was. Yeah, it was a breakaway. Skinner should have had that puck. That was not some crazy super snipe shot. Like, that was very savable. And then a couple minutes after that, another breakaway. What we saw towards the end of the third period was the Oilers defense starting to break down and the Canucks finally getting good chances. And when the Canucks had good chances, they got 2 goals. You know what I mean? So from the Oilers' perspective, I do think they did a terrific job at just making sure that the Canucks had nothing of quality going through. To your point, John, Brock Besser, obviously that is a factor on some level. Like, you're not going to say that didn't impact the game, but with or without Besser, I just thought that the Canucks were lifeless for those first 2 periods. And I just want to make a quick shout out to the Canucks fans. Like, I know where I'm from in the rink that I go to watch my favorite team. If they're down 3-0 in the third period, nobody is standing up, waving towels, cheering on their team. That is not happening here. So shout out to the Canucks fans. They gave their boys a huge standing ovation, waving towels, even when the game was over. So shout out to the Canucks fans. And listen, shout out to the Oilers and shout out to their fans. Connor McDavid is the best player in the world, and we get to see him for at least another week and a half. So that's nothing but good for the NHL. Speaking of which, let's move on to the conference final previews. Let's start with your guys, Andre. Let's start on the East Coast. Game 1 is tomorrow. The Florida Panthers, New York Rangers, Madison Square Garden to kick it all off tomorrow night. This is a series preview. These are the series odds in front of you right now. The Florida Panthers minus 150 to win the series. The New York Rangers plus 130. What we're seeing not all playoffs long. Ever since the Carolina series started, this is what we've been seeing from the books with regards to the New York Rangers. If you want to favor the Florida Panthers, that's fine. Minus 150 is outrageous. Plus 130 for the Rangers. I don't know, man. I'm having a really hard time predicting this series. I think this is going to be a really, really close battle. Even if it's a 5-game series, 6-game series, I don't see anyone running away with this. I think every game's going to be super close. This is going to be a phenomenal series. Andre, let's start with you, man. What do you see in this series starting tomorrow? But what is your preview for the series as a whole?
It's going to be a really good one. This Panthers team, obviously, they won the East last year. Super physical, not afraid to get dirty, not afraid to send a message to their own detriment, you would think. And to that point, they're the most penalized team in the NHL this year. So right off the bat, you got a Rangers power play that should get more opportunities in theory, on paper, against this Panthers team that they did in the first round or the second round. And they're operating at 31.4% this postseason. They were 26-something against the Canes, even though they had an 0-for-9 stretch. It's just been a phenomenal power play for them in the playoffs. So they have a better matchup, if you will. Florida still has a good PK, but that could be an X factor for sure, especially when you look at the flip side where Rangers penalty kill has been just under 90% this postseason. They have as many shorthanded goals as power play goals allowed. And Florida's power play, it's really Reinhart has most of the goals, most of the damage. I think the second most power play goals for them was for Hagee with 8. So special teams is once again an area that could make a huge difference. Health. Both teams are healthy, which is kind of crazy for this time of year, but there's no major injuries. There's nobody that should not be able to go, at least right now. Blake Wheeler apparently could go. I don't think he's going to play. Filipino should be back in the lineup for the Rangers. Florida has a clean bill of health. I don't think there's anyone even questionable for them. So if that stays true, hopefully it will. We're going to get the best of both teams. And I think the matchup, the two players to watch out for in particular, probably going to share the ice a lot, is going to be Vincent Trocheck and Matthew Tkachuk. Whichever, one of them kind of imposes their will, is a bigger pest, stays out of the penalty box while doing it, is going to give a big boost to that team, to their team. Neither one of them is going to back down. They're going to be in each other's faces a lot, but it's going to be whoever's more disciplined, whoever's actually making a hockey impact while getting under the other team's skin. But I think we know where I'm going with the series for obvious and not obvious reasons. These teams have met 3 times in the regular season. Florida took 2 of them. 2 of the games were by 1 goal. It's good back and forth hockey. There were huge momentum swings in every game. So don't expect a 2-goal lead or even a 3-goal lead to mean the game is over, because we've seen from both teams this postseason we saw from both teams head-to-head in the regular season. Momentum can shift on a flip of a dime. So it's going to be a nice back and forth battle. I think it'll be a little bit higher scoring than people expect, especially with these goalies, but it's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm like I said, like I can see this being either way, man. Like 2-1 games, 4-3 games, like this series. I think the other series is a bit more chalk when it comes to the Stars and the Oilers, but this series I think has a bunch of question marks. John, what do you see in this series, man?
I think this is the tougher series to predict of the two because I consider these two teams closer to even, whereas I'm with Mark in the West seems a bit more concrete looking at it. Trying to be neutral here. I think the Rangers are going to face one challenge that I don't think they've had to face in the playoffs yet, and that's facing a goaltender that's arguably better than their own, like, or at least on the same level. Because
Sure.
Igor is very good, don't get me wrong, but I don't think the Rangers have had a goalie on the other side in the first two rounds that can match and maybe arguably surpass, depending on who you ask, the talent that they have from their own goaltender in Bobrovsky. I think that's going to be a very interesting clash, and the Rangers will get tested in that category for sure. But believe it or not, the Rangers actually lead of the four teams left in save percentage, despite allowing a considerable amount of shots in the playoffs compared to Florida. Rangers have the highest save percentage of any of the four teams left in the postseason, at least. So that's good for them. And I agree with Andre about special teams. That should also be a key. I would argue that was a big reason why the Rangers got past the Canes. Canes couldn't get anything going in the first half of that series against the Rangers. I believe like their first 15 or so power play opportunities, Canes didn't even convert. And Andre mentioned the shorthanded goals. That's another big thing. Rangers, by far, the most shorthanded goals in the playoffs so far. They have 4. I don't think any other team has more than I'm going to double check this, but I don't think any other team has more than 2 shorthanded goals in the postseason. Ironically, one of them is the Panthers that have 2, but still, the emphasis is the Rangers have done an incredible job shorthanded and on the PK in general, in my opinion. Florida, I don't think their power play has been quite what it was in the regular season, but I did feel like it was starting to warm up a little bit against Boston. So I think it's heading in the right direction. Don't let the postseason stats completely fool you there. But they're going to have a big test against the Rangers PK that's been on fire for sure. So I think whoever wins that battle between the Panthers power play and Rangers PK will get a significant edge. And I'm talking about the Rangers PK, but like their power play is over 30% too in the postseason. So that's not nothing. I'm leaning towards Rangers in 7 games this series. I think Florida is the Rangers' biggest threat left in the playoffs, but this is something that a stat isn't really going to measure. I think the Rangers have been the most battle-tested team of the 4 teams remaining. And the reason I say that is because they've had what I would like to call a championship moment already, where you go back and look at a team that's won a championship and they made a run, there's usually a significant moment in the postseason that could very easily go the other way that the team that won was able to overcome. And I think the Rangers had that moment in Game 6 against the Canes with Kreider. Not just Kreider, but Kreider led the charge, getting that third period hat trick. And he's already in rare company with guys you definitely want to be in the same conversation with. Messier being a big example there from 94. So, yeah, I think the Rangers have had that moment. I don't really think Florida has really been through the ringer yet. Not even against Boston. Yeah, maybe losing Game 5 the way they did scared them a little bit. But I don't know. Mark said this like in the middle of the second round. I feel like the Rangers have been through that and feel like they know what it takes to win a championship now. Whereas Florida, I know they made the Stanley Cup Finals last year, but it feels like they've been kind of coasting through the playoffs. Maybe that's not fair to their opponents, but that's just the way I see it.
No, and I agree with you, man. Like, listen, we all picked Tampa Bay to win that first series. It was very clear that we were wrong. That wasn't just like a couple bounces here and there. Like, Florida beat them handedly. Boston, we all knew that. Like, I mean, listen, Boston tightened up as the series went on. Boston had a good fight. Game 6 could have gone either way. Florida didn't score the game-winning goal until like a minute and a half left in Game 6. So that's no disrespect to Boston, but I 100% agree with you. The Rangers, yes, they played Washington. We understand how that is not a challenging series for the Rangers, but that series against Carolina, man, that got dicey, especially later on. And even in the games that the Rangers won, Carolina carried the play for a lot of that series. Even with the Rangers up 3-0, there were games where Carolina carried the play, but the Rangers just found a way to win. The biggest question marks for me when it comes to the Rangers in this series, well, actually, first of all, you both talking about special teams. We see this every year that the deeper you get in the playoffs, the smaller the margins get. And usually those margins are special teams. And we saw that, I mean, with the Vancouver series that just wrapped up last night. Like, Vancouver could not get a power play goal to save their life. And they very easily could have won that series if they could have done something with their special teams. And I know this happens every year, but this year kind of more than ever, it just kind of feels like special teams have been way more a factor or a non-factor than in years past. My biggest question mark when it comes to the New York Rangers, because at first glance, I do want to pick the Rangers. That being said, I've said this all year long that if the Florida Panthers play to the best of their ability, they will go to the Stanley Cup Finals. I've been saying this since like November. And what concerns me with regards to the Rangers is the Rangers can beat you anyway. They can beat you in a slugfest. They can get physical. They can get dirty, or they can play with finesse. They can get goals. They can outscore you. However, the Florida Panthers win one way, and that is by smashing your head against the wall. That's just how the Panthers are. And I'd be interested as this series goes on what you think, Andre, because as much as the Rangers can be physical, and you have Rempe, who may or may not start at Madison Square Garden, at least, the Florida Panthers are they're the dirtier team. They're the bigger bullies out of these two teams. And I do get worried for the Rangers that if you try to play to their level and you get dragged into this bully fest that the Panthers want to play, does that suit you? I don't know if it does. And so I at least not playing the Panthers, because that's the way the Panthers are, man. They're a dirty team. They're a physical team. They're going to drag you into the mud. So how the Rangers respond to that is what I'm really, really curious about. With regards to the goaltending, I'm not concerned about the goaltending matchup at all. I think, yes, Bobrovsky is a very good goaltender. They're both, or they're not. Bobrovsky is a Vezina candidate this year, correct? Not Shesterkin, or is it the other way around? I think it's
just
Bobrovsky. Yeah,
his third.
Yeah, so but Shesterkin, I would rather have Shesterkin behind the net, I think, or not behind the net, in front of the net, preferably. I just think Bob, as good as Bob is, I think he is more susceptible to a stinker. Like he's more susceptible to just letting in weird goals and weird shots. I not concerned. I mean, we saw like there were games where was it game 5 or game 4 where the Bruins were up 2-0 in the first period on like 5 shots. I think we see that way more from Bob than we do from Shesterkin. So I'm not concerned about the goaltending matchup. Really, for me, it's pretty simple. It comes down to special teams. Both power plays are good. The Rangers power play has been phenomenal this postseason. Both penalty kills are very good. To me, this is about style of play. How can the Rangers keep up with this bully mentality that the Panthers have? That's really what I'm the most curious about. And I'm not sure. I'm going to take the Rangers in this series. They're plus 130 to win it. I'm going to pick them in 7 games. That's plus 475 for the Rangers to win in 7 games. I think this goes the distance. I don't know if this really makes sense. Maybe you guys can talk some sense into this. I do feel like if the Panthers win, I think the Panthers win in like 6 games. I think the longer this series goes, the more it favors the Rangers. I can easily see the Rangers being up 3-2. Panthers laying a beatdown in game 6 at home, and then the Rangers coming back and winning in game 7. But that's my prediction from it, and that's really my biggest thing. I if you're going stat for stat, I mean, Trocheck 14 points, Tkachuk 14 points, Carter Verhaeghe has 6 goals, Kreider has 7 goals, Matthew Tkachuk 10 assists, Zibanejad 11 assists, Bobrovsky. I mean, the Panthers, they're 8-3, Rangers 8-2. Bobrovsky's goals against average 237, Shesterkin's 240. Like, these are all lockstep stats. It's a very close series, but I do think the Rangers find a way to pull it out in 7 games. So Rangers plus 130 to win the series and plus 475 to win it in 7. All right, moving on to the Western Conference Finals. You have the Dallas Stars minus 125 to win the series versus the Edmonton Oilers, who are plus 105 to win the series. John, we'll start with you, man. What do you see in the Dallas Stars versus the Edmonton Oilers?
I said this in the Game 7 recap that we did earlier. I don't think Edmonton can get away playing the way they did against Vancouver, against Dallas. I think we all touched on this. I think that they relied on Vancouver just not getting a lot of opportunities. And I know Dallas isn't ridiculous when it comes to shooting the puck, well, with like shots on goal, but like they're a team that's going to take advantage of their opportunities more often. I mean, this was a top 3 scoring team in the NHL last year. They just beat the team that led the NHL in scoring this season. So I think Edmonton is now facing a team that can really keep up with them offensively. And I think that's something Edmonton relies on. Dallas, I think, is incredible defensively. I was very impressed the way they kept Colorado in check for the majority of that series. I'm going to be very interested to see what they do defensively against Edmonton, because I think the star players on Edmonton are even better than what they faced with Colorado. though Dallas certainly got a good test there. I also think Edmonton's taken a step up in goaltending opponents. Ottinger, I think, is going to, as much as I respect the way Shield's played in that series, I do think Ottinger is a step up for difficulty for Edmonton's side. He could be had, don't get me wrong, but I think he's a little more consistent and a little more upside with him as a goaltender. Dallas, kind of like the Rangers, gave up a lot of shots on goal, but they really contained them. They're second of the 4 teams left in save percentage. So I think defense and goaltending is going to be key for Dallas. And for Edmonton, I think the key is going to be the power play, because like they're in the postseason. If we just look at the postseason numbers, there is a significant gap here, because Edmonton has been about 37% on the power play in the postseason. Dallas's PK has been vulnerable. They're under 70% in the playoffs. So I think for Dallas, the key is going to be avoiding the penalty box, because Edmonton's power play is lethal. We've seen that on display with when the star players end up on the same line. They're vicious. I think the ESPN guys touched on this last night as well. 5-on-5. If it's 5-on-5 most of the time, Dallas probably wins the series. If Edmonton gets enough power play opportunities, there's a chance it might go the other way, or at least a chance of extending the series some games. I think if Dallas can contain Edmonton in that department, I could see this being over in as little as 5 games. I'm not sure I'm ready to jump to that conclusion yet, but I don't know. Like, Edmonton played great in Game 6 and pretty good in Game 7 until the third period. But I feel like if Edmonton, I felt like was relying on Vancouver not getting a lot of shots on goal. And I don't think they'll be able to hold Dallas to under 20 shots a game for the majority of the series, which is why I'm leaning towards Dallas in 5, because I don't even want to pick 6, because I saw that Edmonton home ice on Saturday, and it's just lethal out there. Like that place was electric. I'm going to go Dallas in 5. I really think they can wrap it up early. And Edmonton, again, offensively great, but Dallas's defensive ability, I was very impressed with against Colorado. And Skinner, this is another thing. Skinner, I'm just not sure is going to hold up for the majority of that series. So, yeah, Dallas in 5.
Look at you go. Andre, what about you, man? You agree?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up that last point, John. 24 different goalies have started a game this postseason. Now, where would you guys rank Skinner among those 24? And why does the number start with a 2? He's awful. He's not cut out to be a Western Conference Finals starting goalie. And maybe Pickard gets the assignment, once or twice. They spell him because he's not allowed to start 3 in a row with the season on the line. Then he comes back in. But when Skinner's in, it's going to be rough for the Oilers, because Dallas is going to take advantage. 100%. Their offense is just as dangerous. They're healthier. They just faced Georgiev, and it's kind of the same thing. Just pepper them with shots. You're going to get a few through. You're going to find some holes. So Dallas knows what it takes to win. They beat this Oilers team twice during the regular season in 3 matchups. Their only loss was in OT. What I found interesting about those games is that Edmonton's power play only went 1 for 12. Now, that's great if you're Dallas, but you've seen this postseason, Dallas's PK has struggled a lot.
Yeah.
And Edmonton's PK has been the best in the playoffs. Their power play has also been the best in the playoffs. So, not to beat a dead horse here, but you're looking at that Edmonton power play. If they do what they did in the regular season against the Stars in this series, I'm right there with John. This is a 4-game, 5-game series, especially if Skinner's starting all those games. If Edmonton's power play stays hot, even against the Stars PK that shut them down in their regular season matchups, then this could go 6. This could go 7. either way, I feel like this is Dallas's series to lose, and I'm 100% taking Dallas to win it. Just for the goalie battle alone, Ottinger is head and shoulders above Skinner, and we don't know if we're going to see Pickard or for how long, or how good he is, how reliable he'll be if he gets more than 2 games. So, I mean, Edmonton, top-end talent, probably the team you want to see in the Stanley Cup Finals, but they're not the better team in this game. And we've seen a lot of the higher seeds win. And we've seen Dallas just face adversity and be one of the better teams of this postseason, top to bottom, just find ways to win, even though you can argue they're not playing their best. So I'm rolling with the Stars.
Yeah, so here's my thing. I think going to what you said, John, about the Rangers being battle tested more so than the Panthers, I think the same is true for Dallas. I mean, you had to play the defending champs. That went 7 games. You beat the best home team in the league and the highest scoring team in the league when it comes to the Colorado Avalanche. Now, with what happened with their, top scorer, that happened. That's not taking anything away from Dallas. They played a phenomenal series and they deserved to win it. So when it comes to the Oilers, you play the Kings, where you are 12-6 against the Los Angeles Kings, and you have you are significantly below 500 when it comes to everybody else in the NHL over the last 3 years in the playoffs. So to me, we're going to find out. I said this just like 20 minutes ago that I thought that specifically last night, but even the series was more about Vancouver just puking all over themselves than it was the Oilers just dominating and winning a series. We're going to find out if I'm right or wrong here, because the way the Oilers played to shut down and demoralize the Vancouver Canucks, I don't know if that's going to work against the Dallas Stars. I thought the Canucks were a very deep team, and I think that they are. But however deep the Canucks are, the Stars are way deeper. These guys roll out 4 lines. Their defense, big, strong. We've said this all playoffs long, guys. Well, not even playoffs, the whole season long, guys. Like, if Ottinger is Ottinger, this Dallas team can beat anybody. And so far, he's 8-5, but that series against Vegas went 7 games. They play Colorado. They lost 2. Jake Ottinger's goals against average, 209, 918 save percentage. When you're Stuart Skinner and you have an 881 save percentage and you barely face 20 shots a game versus the Canucks, that's a problem. And so it's really hard to see the Oilers. Now, as a Canadian, I would love to see the Oilers make it through to the Stanley Cup Finals. As a hockey fan, I would love to see Connor McDavid make it through to the Stanley Cup Finals. I just don't. They just rely way too heavily on their big boys. Like, if you look at the point totals for the Edmonton Oilers, you have Hyman has 13 points, 11 goals, 2 assists, 13 points. Draisaitl, 24 points. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, the Nuge, 16 points. Connor McDavid, 21 points. Bouchard, the owner of the Boosh Bomb, as it's been known to be called now, he has 20 points. Other than that, you have Ekholm, who has 6. And if my computer stops freezing, I will tell you who. Jeez. Do you guys still have? Yeah, you have me. All right, cool. So you have Ekholm, who has 6 points. You have Kane, who has 7. Those are the only 2 guys who have more than 4 points who are not the players that I named earlier. Like, that is so top heavy. It's ridiculous. And so how's that going to translate to this series, man? I have no idea. Like, you have 3 players who have 20 or more points, and then you have 2 other players who have more than 6 points. Like, I just don't know how that's going to translate. Then to flip over to the Dallas Stars side of things, you don't have anybody who has hit 20 points yet, but you got 6 points, 8 points, 4 points, 4 points, 12, 11, 6, 8, 6, 13. Like, it's very evenly spread out. And I'm going to be really interested I just think Dallas, they're deeper, and their goaltending's better. And I really do think it's that simple. The one thing that both of you guys said, but in different ways, John, you were talking about the power play for the Oilers. Andre, you were talking about the penalty killing for the Stars. I really do think that can be the game changer for this series. I haven't looked at why the Stars penalty killing is 69.2. Like, that could be that they just haven't taken that many penalties, and any opportunities they've given, the opponents have scored on. I have no idea. But that's a concerning number. Like, 69.2 penalty killing, that's a concerning percentage when you're coming up against a power play that's 37.5.
Just to comment on that real quick.
Yeah.
You mentioned the amount of penalties Dallas might have taken. I think they have like 68 penalty minutes in the postseason. My bad. To kind of emphasize your points, it's definitely the least of the 4 teams left, because the Panthers have like 171. Granted, a lot of that's probably that fight against Boston.
Yeah.
Rangers have 102, and Edmonton has 139.
So that's significantly less. Yeah. So
Yes.
that's really interesting. Good job on not taking a lot of penalties. Not good job on allowing goals whenever you do take a penalty. So that's going to be really interesting. I just don't think the Oilers have the depth to keep up. It's that simple. You mentioned, I think, Andre, you mentioned this. It could have been John. Either way, good job, guys. It's interesting, your point about not wanting to take 6 games, because if it goes back to Edmonton for a 6th game, that was probably John. That's a really, really interesting point. I do think that the Stars, that this whole series goes to Edmonton in game 3 with the Stars up 2-0. And that'll be really interesting if Dallas gets the split in Edmonton, or if the Oilers can bounce back and win 2 at home. I'm going to take the Stars in 5 games as well. I think 6 is probably more accurate, but I do think the Stars win this series in 5 games. I'm going to take that as well. That's plus 600 for the Stars in 5 games. All right. Great show, guys. That is the preview. We're going to be back tomorrow morning to preview and break down the game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. No best bets because there's no games tonight. But Andre, I know you're always looking at baseball, bro. You got a little baseball bet for us? Throw you on the spot? You got something in the MLB?
Wasn't expecting this, but yeah, so I got a couple. You can go Yankees, Mariners under. It was a lock yesterday until Clay Holmes fell apart. Was it 4-1 going into that 9th inning? So I'm still on that under 8 runs. I like the Astros bouncing back, beating the Angels by at least 2. So you can take Houston -1.5. And Mark, I think you'll like this one if I can find the odds again. Your boys at home against the White Sox, the worst offense in the league. Kikuchi is going to absolutely dominate. You can take a ton of props for him. You can take the Blue Jays -1.5 in that one. Maybe under 7. These are the 2 lowest scoring teams in the majors, but it's kind of dicey at 7. I don't know. Definitely like Blue Jays -1.5. Definitely like anything to do with Kikuchi, whether that's, over 5.5 strikeouts, over 17.5 outs recorded. I wish there's an alternate on that one. Under 2.5 runs allowed. So there you go.
I'm right there with you with the Blue Jays -1.5. And Kikuchi, dude, his first year with the Blue Jays, everybody wanted to ship him out of here to wherever he would want to go. Like, he was absolutely awful. And there's something in baseball. We saw it with Robbie Ray. I'm sure you guys have other examples. There's something about pitchers when they get tighter pants, they just play really well. And Kikuchi tightened up those pants, went down a size, and he's been lights out ever since. So I'm right there with you. John, you got any baseball plays today, bro? It's okay if you don't. I didn't give you guys a heads up on this at all.
I got to be honest, it's not like I'm looking, but the Yankees blew a 3-run lead last night, so I would probably look at something their way, like maybe to bounce back tonight. But I don't have the odds. Yeah, I'm looking at their odds right now. Like, I don't know if I'd even bet on Nets. Maybe maybe the run line for the Yankees tonight. I don't know. Feel like they get a nice bounce back win. I think that's +130.
Well, and I know that the Rockies suck, but the A's suck worse, and the Rockies are plus money in Oakland tonight, +114, so I don't mind that as well. All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching. Whether you're watching live or throughout the day, we appreciate you. We will be back tomorrow morning to talk about the Rangers, Panthers. First round collectibles, promo code Sports Addict for 10% off every sports card in the entire store, including sales items. Head over to TotalApexSports.com. You can catch my breakdown of the Western Conference Finals coming out tomorrow morning. We appreciate you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day.